It's cold. So I'm wearing my dressing gown, which is just a jacket. Anyway, I kind of wanted to talk about, in this video, the mild surrealism of Alien. It's not really surrealism, but it'll make a catchy looking title. I'm mostly looking at two different scenes from Alien. The first scene where you're looking through the ship while everything's turning on, and another scene where Ash, the android, spoilers, attacks Ripley. And there are two moments which I have always thought were kind of fourth wall breaks, but there's this kind of recontextualization of it that I like. This being that in the Alien, in the ship and in the Nostromo and in the Alien games even, you'll notice, especially in Alien Isolation, there's a lot of air vents, like the pressurized ducts, especially in, of course, the original Alien, because that's, of course, where two of the characters work in a lot of those areas. Big ship as it is. And in the opening scene, we have pretty much a handheld shot that just walks throughout the ship, just looking at all the different things. And it gets to the main, like, kind of dock, where the bloody pilots sit. The hangar bay? I don't know what the hell. The cockpit, more or less. It's hard to say because it's not exactly that kind of a ship now, is it? It's not exactly a plane or a boat. But it's where the pilots and the engineer, those people who are like, hey, this is where we're going to go. The pilots sit. That's where they sit. I'm really bad at this already. I'm sorry. But, of course, no one's awake by this stage because the ship's just turning itself on. And so air is coming back through, all being pressurized and stuff. And there's a part where it looks like, and even sounds like, a whole, like, block, like, it looks like a tub, sounds like a tub, is just being knocked. And then gets knocked again as the camera, like, it gets knocked once while you can see it, then gets knocked again as the camera's further passing. This could be a cable that's connected to the camera has hit it and has hit it the second time. And that was always a thing that made me think, like, that there's some kind of full breaking nature in this film. And, of course, it realistically is just air pressurizing. Maybe it's hitting it, knocking it. That's the kind of recontextualization of it. I'd always like to know what exactly made it get knocked. And it didn't fall over or anything, but again, they didn't cut it, they didn't redo the shot, because again, it is quite maybe a 10-20 second long shot as it is.
Hi, it's me from the future. Sorry about the different audio quality. I'm using the camera mic. So I decided to copy the scene and put it into my actual video, which you would have just seen the clip for. Hopefully 20th Century Fox or Disney doesn't, be like, yo, what the fuck? And I realised whilst watching it, because of course on YouTube it's in much bigger of a screen and I'm looking at it more closer up, the box that actually moves is actually something that moves automatically. It just sounds like, it's a box that's just been hit by a cable, which is what I'm trying to get at, that like, oh, maybe they accidentally hit it during the filming and they didn't want to reshoot it or whatever. But I realised it was actually on purpose, that the thing actually does it, and there's a thing in the room also that enters the shot later that just moves up and down. They're just things that automatically move, and that's why the box made the noise a second time, because it actually normally moves, and there's a shutter. Moves again, shutter. I don't know why. I don't know how I didn't notice that. I think it was just, again, the whole point of this video was meant to be me looking at two different aspects of this film. One I'll leave the rest of the clip in, because that's still pretty accurate in terms of my thinking of it, and the whole air ducts idea. But this part I realised was kind of on purpose. The only fourth wall breaking part of it is when the camera keeps moving and there's like a notepad, like with paper that flips up, which obviously is the person breathing past it. So that's more of the fourth wall break that I should have been talking about, rather than the boxes that are moving that aren't actually boxes. They're just weird tub thingies that have an automatic system. So that's the thing. So I'm going to cut out the rest of that part of the video, and maybe I'll keep in whatever is necessary and just jump right into the second half of the video where I talk about how the scene where Ash attacks Ripley and how he looks directly at the camera. So let's get into that.
And then, of course, we jump to the second scene where Ash is, of course, attacking Ripley. And there's a part where he's knocked her to the ground, and he's standing over her, and the camera walks up to her, all handheld again. Walks up to him while he's standing there looking at her, and then it walks backwards, and to a point where he's just a bit out of view, but he's still there. You can still see him, and you hear a wind chime get knocked, and the camera keeps walking, and the wind chime is swinging, and of course, as it dingles and you hear it, so does Ash, and he looks right at it. But then he recontextualizes it for himself. He's like, and he looks at the location, and then he looks back to Ripley, and he grabs her, and he lifts her, and he throws her over to it, and then that's where the camera moves, because that's where we were initially meant to go to, because that's where he tries to kill her by shoving a rolled up magazine down her throat, which is not a very effective way to kill someone. But they even have a cut as well when she gets thrown over, and you get a cut to when he's moved closer and it's got a closer up shot, and he's trying to figure out in what way he can kill her while she's mostly knocked out. And of course the chimes are still swinging, and of course his focus is not even on the chimes, it's on his objective. And I always thought that was the most revealing kind of fourth wall breaking scene, and even Ridley Scott has said that shooting the film was like shooting on a submarine. It was so cramped and dense, so it makes sense that something like that could happen, but they obviously went along with it because of how long it took for them to do the shot, probably to perfect it. And it's like, oh, we finally got the perfect shot, but the wind chimes have just been hit by the cameraman, and it's like, well, if we just cut to the next shot and the wind chimes are still swinging, it's us saying, yeah, okay, it's a thing that's already happened. We're not saying that it was a cameraman who did it, but maybe there's something else that did it, and it just happened to be swinging and whatever. And again, it does have the very particular sound of a wind chime, and I note that particularly because, of course, it makes how else would it get hit if it wasn't by a cameraman? In universe, how would it have been hit? And hence the kind of pressurized air comes in. Of course, the opening of the film, you see those two boxes, like that kind of box stack thing, whatever it is, get knocked to some degree, twice. And so that is arguably the air pressurizing itself, and I don't know exactly how that could work, but that's just what the theory kind of is. There might be a small air grate below it that you don't see that, blows air twice through and knocks it a little, makes it shake. Because it obviously sounds pretty empty, but, that's just how it kind of goes. And of course the same could be said here. We don't see any air vents, but at the same time, we don't need to see air vents. It's kind of an obvious, they're on a big ship, you'd expect there to be air vents kind of all around the place. So maybe there was just this kind of ducting of air that just happened to kind of swing through it, like a gust of wind kind of thing, and it just happened to blow the wind chimes. And that kind of makes sense, because otherwise they'd probably be still for most of the time, maybe, but then if there's always an air current, they probably wouldn't be. And that's kind of what I've done that's what I've kind of figured out and theorized, at least through just some capabilities of research, because it's like, look, I don't want to see this film as kind of imperfect because of it. And, I mean, there's even apparently a scene where Dallas is going after the alien, and you can see the dolly track, but if you don't really pay attention to it, it just kind of seems a part of the decor, which they ended up adapting into the game of Alien Isolation, and it is part of the decor. It is meant to look like that as if it wasn't a mistake. And to be fair, dolly tracks are hard to deal with as it is. And so it's just kind of amusing to look at films with that kind of idea of this kind of fourth wall breaking nature that's like all these kind of incidental stuff. Oh, we weren't meant to make that sound, or that wasn't meant to happen there, but it just did in camera, and they roll with it, because sometimes it's a budgetary reason, we don't have enough money or time to reshoot the scene, maybe we've reshot it a few times to get it perfect, and this is the best one we've gotten, so we're like, screw it, we'll run with this one, we'll just retake, just add in this little extra take here to make sure that we completely are cool with it, So, yeah. I don't know, for you Alien fans who have seen the film and who are maybe annoyed or confused by the scene, if you haven't noticed it, then that's perfectly fine. But if you have noticed it, what do you think? Because I like to see it as a fun little thing of like, because it always gets me that every time the chimes are hit and he just looks like Ian Holmes looks right to the camera, but doesn't look at the camera, not the person. He looks at the chimes and the location and thinks, like, instead plays it in character as this is where I want to throw, you know, Ripley to try to strangle her, you know, to try and kill her. And it makes sense because otherwise, why would the camera be going there? You know, we're not running away to maybe have her get killed off screen. No, it's all part of the plot. So it's obviously in reason, in context, that he's going to look in that area anyway. Maybe it's just that gust of wind just blows it. You don't hear the wind because wind is sometimes silent and just blows it through. Wind chimes get hit because sometimes, you know, maybe the ship has a kind of thing where it's like each room has a particular amount of oxygen that goes into it, a particular amount of airflow, and sometimes it needs to reset the airflow, like how I've got, you know, air ducts here, and every 10 minutes or so the system will turn itself back on to recirculate air to make it either colder or hotter depending on which vent you're looking for and like what exactly the setting is. And so it could be that kind of a thing, that technology has that kind of level where while they've been talking and arguing, that hasn't been a thing. The air hasn't recirculated through. And especially because the android has actually closed off the doors, it makes sense that this new gust of air has come through to make sure that the air is recirculating through the room, given that it's not going through the passageways and the passageways isn't giving it more air. You know, it doesn't have a stabilization level. So obviously the system itself can just be like, okay, well, these doors have just been closed off. Let's recirculate some air into here to make sure that whoever's in there is still breathing. Because, you know, otherwise, what's the point of a air support system, a life support system on a ship, if not to provide oxygen and air? And so it kind of makes sense that it blows the wind chimes because it's the only other thing in the room that could potentially make noise. And who else would put wind chimes there? It's obviously someone's bed. You can tell because of all the personalized artifacts that are there. And so it contextually makes more sense. You don't have to overthink it like myself, but it's just kind of there. Because I think for me, this is like a justification as to why in the hell it made it into the final cut. But it's kind of fun as well, because it just kind of gets you out of the blue. Like you hear wind chimes, you're like, wait, what the hell? And you suddenly think, oh shit. But then, of course, maybe before you can think of, oh, the cameraman must have hit the wind chimes, you know, he grabs the girl and throws Ripley, and boom, the rest of the scene continues. So that's how it'll be. Yeah, I don't know. If that's a justification enough, then that's a justification enough. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process of it. That it's just air ducts. They always scare you the most. Or they you can use them to be kind of a dick to Ripley. Yeah. So that's this video. Thanks for watching. I don't have anything more to dissect about it. It's not exactly what the surrealist, but kind of like just the kind of strange occurrences that happen in the film and attempting to justify them in terms of a contextual, point of view. Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. If you have your own theory about what the hell happened, please do not link me to Alien Theory. I've already watched their videos. But if you have some kind of a theory of your own that makes you think it makes sense in this particular different light, then feel free to comment down below. I'm all ears. If you like my opinion, my theory, my justification, then feel free to like the video. Share it if you want to. Subscribe. I talk about films. I have a film shelf that I go through quite often. I do video essays. I do all kinds of videos on this channel, mostly film related. Yeah, that's all for now. Bye. I'm gonna walk away now. Bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.